You know, he's really he's shameless in intellectual argument. He's absolutely without character, a moral foundation, or even intellectual substance.
To the Getting Lit podcast. Last episode we talked about JDO's book God's Fair No Better, and this episode we're not really talking about a book, but we're getting meta and we're talking about how to read. And I wanted to do this because Frester has written a wonderful piece about this on Rare Candy's Substack. It was a couple of years ago now, or last year.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess were you asked to do that, or did you just submit it to them, or?
Yeah, no, I just was like thinking about it one day, and like this is how I always write, is like an idea I'll just get in my head, and then I'm like, I'll quickly just jot it down on my phone. And then I like wrote it, and then I was like, messaged Glenn, and I was like, oh, hey, I just wrote this thing, would you run it? And he's like, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And then I just like didn't hear anything from him for a while, so I was like, I guess he didn't like it. And then he's like, all right, I'm putting it up tomorrow. I was like, oh, really? You're running it? I'd like already just given up hope that it was going to get published. So,
So I just wanted to talk about this because I've actually had a few people reach out to me because they know I host a books podcast. I might have mentioned this on a previous episode, but I've been asking like, oh, where do I get started? And I've been getting lots of questions about like, I used to read a lot. And I just can't get my attention back. Like, it's really hard to like focus and read books now and blah, 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 blah. And like usually asking me for tips and things like this. And I've mostly been pointing them to your article. just go read this. But if you can even like sit still long enough to read this, which is like what, 1,000 words, maybe not even that.
I'm not good at the word count thing. I always hear authors talking about like in terms of word counts, and I just have like no concept for what. So I was going to say 100 words.
100 words. It's like a paragraph.
Yeah. So maybe it's 1,000. I don't know.
Yeah.
500 to 1,000.
So I do point people towards this, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in it, but also I think there's a lot of, one of the things that you kind of get at in this, little essay that you've done, which I think is very true, is this idea that, you have to start with like a high modernist or like really, really difficult classics or things like that. And I don't think you do. I think like, if you want to get back into reading, I would go with like the trashiest thing you're interested in. Like if you're a guy into like airport novels or whatever, just get on that Crichton tip. Lots of resources on Rare Candy for that. Or, you know, what's that other guy's name? James Patterson, or
there's Dean Koontz, Stephen King, anything like that.
Schlocky stuff that you kind of know you'll be interested in. And so like we read heaps of books for the podcast. So we've got experience with this, but I will admit even myself that like the phone is the problem, right? So that sometimes you get distracted, you get a notification, or you get like that. I hate this like, coiling need you have within you to check your phone sometimes, even if you don't have a notification. And that can creep up on you when you're reading sometimes. And that just disturbs the flow of things. And so I think that we're doing this episode as a sort of like public service, to get people to think about, how to, if they have trouble sticking to like reading and books and things like that, we're gonna kind of go through some of our hints and tips for doing this. This sounds very remedial for like people who are, you know, listening to a books podcast, but I'm saying to you that like even I have this, I'm guessing you have this as well, that like sometimes you can be just distracted by phones, life, you know, all this other stuff. And it's not necessarily about ignoring all of that because, you know, you don't want to get so engrossed in a book that you're going to abandon your partner who's just fallen off the balcony or something. But like you need to lock in basically. And there's various strategies that we've got. But yeah, why did you write this? It just came to you, or like did you have a similar thing with people asking you like, how do you read so much or whatever? Like what's the
No, it was more just like for myself, like noticing, like these things that were like slowing me down or things. And I sort of I guess I just started like compiling a mental list of like tips that I was helping myself. And so I'd have to like, you know, like if I was finding myself like grabbing at my phone or just like reading the same paragraph over a million times, I would sometimes have to like go back to my own checklist and think like, what have I done in the past to like, get past this. And so I think I was just sitting in the bath, like trying to read something and I kept like zoning out. And then I was like, that's right. Like, you know, sometimes I do, like, well, to back it up a little bit, I'd say like the ultimate advice is given by Jack Mason, which is just scan your eyes across the page.
exactly
and read the story. That's literally it. But
and he says as
people-
well that I agree with. Even if you miss things, like don't worry, just keep going. Like, because you can always like, you know, go back if you really want to know this detail that's not filled in later on or whatever. Like, so I don't think missing things is necessarily a bad thing because a lot of stuff, a lot of texture and things that fill in the world or the characters or whatever often isn't like crucial for you understanding what's going on later in the book. And if it is, just flick back, you know, and you know, like you really do. Sometimes I read something and like my eyes will glaze over and I'm kind of not really reading it, but I am. Have you ever had that experience where you like, you're sort of like going through the sentences and you are reading it, but you're not like taking it in? Like sometimes that happens too, which is a very weird feeling.
Yeah, and then you'll reread it, and then once you've like you're saying, you don't have to go back. Like I just started like the Gene Wolfe, the first book of the Long Sun. It's called Nightside the Long Sun. I was calling it Nightside of the Long Sun, and then I showed a cover to Josie. She goes, Nightside the Long Sun. I go, it's Nightside of the Long Sun, you idiot. And then she's like, I look at it and I'm like, oh, she's actually correct. I just put the of in there because and I don't know if that's why he did that to fuck with the reader or whatever.
Probably.
But anyway, like the first few pages, I've like no context for what's going on, and it's sort of meant to be that. And they introduce a bunch of like character names and stuff. And I just did exactly that. I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to keep reading through. And then a few pages later, all that shit started making sense. Like your mind, it is in your mind somewhere. If you read it, like even if you didn't consciously read it, you still did absorb it in some degree. So if you just keep reading a few pages through, you'll eventually get enough context that you're like, oh, I can actually see the story in my head now. And then you can like either go back or just remember those earlier passages. So because I do that all the time. Like I'll just read the same. There's just certain types of paragraphs where like no matter how many times I read it, my brain will just not latch onto it. And same with the audiobooks or whatever. So, and like I used to always just keep reading it, and then you're like putting yourself to sleep because you're so bored and like not interested. You just, it's just much better to push through.
Yeah.
And if you just keep doing that, if you're doing that for like 25 pages and you're just literally abandon the book, like you can come back to it later. That's the other thing people always do is they start a book and they're like, well, I heard about this other book I want to read, but I'm still like only 25 pages into fucking like whatever. And it's usually some like thick, like non-fiction thing or something. They're like, oh, I have to read this whole Deleuze book or something before I can start. It's like, no, you actually don't need to finish that. Just start the book you want to read. Like you got to ride your enthusiasm a bit. Like, so if you're keen for something, like you've heard about a book and it sounds awesome, but you're already in the middle of another book, but you're not enjoying that other book or you're having trouble getting through it, just start a new book and see how you go. Maybe you won't like it as much as you thought, but if you get into it and because it's all about just getting in the zone. Because I think that's what people want when they say they want to read. It's not just they don't know how to read. They want to become immersed in a book where it's not effort. It's not a lot of effort for them to read it. They want to just actually sit down and have a good time reading. And that's what I think what they're asking for is how do you do that?
Yeah. And I think that's, just relating it tangentially to other media as well. I think one of the reasons why people are very dissatisfied with like movies and TV now is that even those genres, which are a bit easier, those forms are a bit easier to get into because like it's a little bit more, I don't want to say passive, but it's a little bit more like when you're reading something, you're co-creating it in a way, right? Like when you read it, but like when you're watching something, it's all given to you. But I think a lot of the complaints about, the Netflixization of like media and stuff like that comes from, films and TV that are made not for you to lock in, that are made not necessarily to immerse you but they're made basically for people who are on their phones and like, random loud stuff will happen, grab people's attention. They'll work out what's happening and then kind of go back to their phone sort of thing. Like you can really see this in most TV shows on streaming and stuff like that, and movies too, that they're really designed this way. So like this concept of immersion only really, I think it only really exists in terms of media forms in books and to a kind of different extent, video games. Like that's the whole point of both of those forms. Whereas the other ones have sort of, I mean, there are films that will immerse you, but they are very slow and kind of, they're like the Tarkovsky thing, like we talked about a few episodes ago, but even that, you have to get into that state where you are receptive to immersion, So yeah, like that's an interesting kind of point that I thought was worth remarking on, that like, you do need to be in a state where you are ready for that kind of immersion, right?
Yeah. And like part of it too is like if you're like, okay, I want to have seen this movie and it goes for 2.5 hours, and then you're thinking about what you're going to do afterwards and you're just trying to get through it. You're constantly going to be checking like how long to go.
Yeah.
And that's all the kind of stuff. Same with a book. Like with, another bit of advice I give is just get a Kindle. Like, everyone go, oh, but I like the feeling of a real book. It's like, shut up, faggot.
Yeah.
Like, just get the Kindle. Like, you can still read real books. Like, but the Kindle is great because you can like literally like tap on the corner and get rid of the page number and how long left. Like, you can check that from time to time, how long left in the chapter. But I think it's best to just turn that off so you can't see that at all. And then also you can just like make the font size huge. So you get this feeling of like punching through pages. Like, so you can be like, it's like whatever they make it up. I make it usually pretty large font. And so it's like, you just like read 25 words, next page, you get this flow on. Whereas if, when you're like got a big tome of a book and it's like Bible size font, and then you open like a 2-page spread and you can see there's no chapter break for like 30 pages, that can like, unless the story's really like got you in, and in which case this advice is not necessarily relevant for you anyway, but like, that makes you just like constantly like, all right, like, and you're just thinking of the labor of getting to that, like the bottom of the next page, and then you flip it like, and still no chapter break, Yeah.
Yeah.
So also, pick books that don't read Gravity's Rainbow if you have trouble. Pick a book that like every 4 pages there's a new chapter or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a pulpy or like airport type kind of novel, if that's what you're into. Like, yeah, you just really need to follow your kind of interest. And I also think that from like going back, like you need to restructure your idea of like what reading a book is. Like you're doing this for pleasure. You're not doing this for education. Unless you are, in which case it's a different thing we're talking about. Like, if you're reading a textbook, fine, right? Like, but yeah, people have this idea that reading is an educational practice because of the way that we are taught reading in school. schooling is a major issue with this, I think, because I think people's frame of mind when they go into reading is that I need to get points out of this or something, some kind of like measurable benefit in terms of like did I learn something or whatever. Like it's just like I remember seeing like a tweet about this that I quote tweeted where I think it was some idiot like right-wing influencer or whatever who was like, was it? I think it was. Who was like, they were talking about fiction and they were saying, why read novels or fiction or whatever? Any of those ideas that you would learn from, you'll get a better version of that in like philosophy and theory. And I'm like, oh my God. First of all,
they use some term like informationally dense or something like that.
Yeah. And so the point being that like if that's the reason you're reading, like just that's the wrong reason to read a novel. If that's why you're reading philosophy and theory or whatever, fine, you can do that. Although there's an argument you could make that certain philosophy is a literary kind of, like Nietzsche is sort of a little bit more literary.
Yeah, and certain like fiction is philosophical.
Yeah.
And like to that person's point, like, oh yeah, it's like, less words to convey the same idea. It's like, yeah, but if those words are boring and it takes you like 6 months to get through a 300-page book, whereas you could just burn through like a 1,000-page book like The Fountainhead or something, it's gonna like, but you're gonna have a good time and you're gonna absorb those ideas. Like, then, like, stupid anyway. Like
the point I'm making basically is the good time is the thing. It's good to get these. It's good to get something like if you want edifying out of a book or whatever it is. But also, I think it's the primary thing that you want out of a fiction book is that pleasure. You want to have a good time rather than I'm doing this to learn something. And it's just like, well, I think the learning something is normally in fiction anyway. It's not the point, but it can be like a kind of epiphenomenon or whatever. I don't know if that's the right word, but you're like a kind of byproduct of having a good time while you're doing that. But I don't think people should go into it like, and this is a problem that even I think like people who are paid to be literary critics and stuff like that have, where they look at it from this point of view of like, what am I getting out of it, like educationally? And I'm like, what? Like, this teaches us this or whatever. Like, it doesn't need to teach you anything. Like, it's a work of art. It's not a work of like, agitprop or propaganda, although, some of it is like, and that's a real problem, obviously, with a lot of literature these days.
Yeah. And it's like, if you say you really insist that you have to read like whatever, some French theory or something like that, like, and I've had good times reading philosophy. Like, generally I find these books are like, you probably could have summed that idea up in one chapter, but you had to stretch it out to a 300-page book, so it was worth buying. But like, say you really just like, for whatever reason, want to be someone who's read Nietzsche or something like that, just get 2 books, get the boring book, and get like something fun, The Island of Dr. Moreau or something, and just be like 10 pages, just go 10 for 10, be like, or chapter for chapter, be like, all right, like once I finish 10 pages of the boring book, then I can treat myself to 10 pages of the like fun book. If you're the kind of person who can be disciplined that way. Like the only pitfall with that is like, if you're like just too chaotic to follow the rules, or you just turn it into this, like you're getting away from reading again by getting all obsessed with the system of the rules. Like there's some advice. I guess that's what I was saying when I was like had more about that article. I want to say is it's like, don't get fixated on all the little things. Like, I've just tried to give hints to like things that I do, but like you got to make your own system that works for you. Like if you like, because I said like, listen to certain, you can, if you you can like put music on like to like block out the sounds of your like coworkers and stuff like that. But if you get too fixated on like picking the right music and stuff like that, and like that can be a distraction too. So you sort of got to like see what works for you and just try to remain like actually reading.
And if you're too spurgy about, if you're going to do that, because sometimes I find it easy to like block out, you know, my partner clanging around the house or whatever while I'm reading. But like, if you can't, if that's a problem for you and like you said, put on music or something, you can even get things like that are just sounds, like ambient sounds. Like there's like 10-hour videos on YouTube of like rain hitting a tin roof. You could do something like that, you know, just to block that out where like it's just a sort of like a white noise.
Yeah, you don't want it to be distracting. Like if it's an artist you like too much, like even if it's just instrumental music or something, like, you know, but if you're going to find that, if you're going to find that more interesting than the book, like, you don't want to listen to anything with vocals, or at least the vocals can't be in English or a language you can understand, you know. Like I listen to the band Dark Throne, like a black metal band, because it's all just like, like I can't, and it's just like textured guitars and stuff. And like, or I'll put like Sun Ra on because it's jazz. But then there's a lot of Sun Ra songs where there's like chanting in English and lyrics and stuff, and I always have to like skip those songs because like my mind will just latch on to that. I am getting better at like tuning out like I was listening to like Kanye the other day and reading, and I was just like actually able to like not pay too much attention to the lyrics or whatever. But you know, that's like, that takes a while to develop that skill. And if someone's got like the news on or something, I just can't like fucking detach.
Oh yeah.
Or you go to a cafe and there's just like some fucking idiots set up at the table near you and they just start talking about the boringest shit. Or at my work, people just like will sit down and just start watching the news or something on their phone without headphones. You'll be reading and they'll just sit down next to you, start watching, or they'll just talk about work with everyone else. It's like, we're at work. Why you want to fucking talk about work on your break? So that's when it's good to have just headphones in your bag or whatever to just put ambient sounds, binaural beats, just white noise, something like that. That's going to just like not be too distracting, but like you can at least block out those noises. And sometimes if you get the soundtrack right, it can enhance the reading process. Just don't get too fixated on that. Don't be like, is this the right soundtrack? Is this like, that's just like a thing that'll just happen by chance once in a while, and you just got to appreciate it when it does happen. But don't be like I was trying to do that reading Neuromancer. I was trying to find the right like cyberpunk kind of like soundtrack, and I was like, even listening to the soundtrack from the video game, but I just was like not finding it to work exactly how I wanted to. And at some point, I was just like, I'm just gonna put Sun Ra on. And that works better.
It's just Sun Ra for everything. Like
I read a lot to Sun Ra. Yeah, it works for a lot. Yeah. Although some of his stuff is like irritating, so like I'll like, because he's just got so many albums, and then I'll just like, I forget what this one sounds like. It's like one of the really like experimentally weird ones, and I was like, I'll just go back to one of the classics kind of thing.
Yeah. So I should have asked you this up front though, like what's your kind of history with this like reading? Like did you read a lot as a kid and then kind of drifted away from it, and you wrote this because you're kind of showing people how you got back into it, or like what was the deal with your own reading practice, so to speak?
As a kid, I got at a certain age, like got into the Goosebumps books.
Oh yeah.
Like probably just about every kid in the 90s did. And that was mostly all I read, although there were some other things. I remember reading, there was this sort of knockoff Goosebumps franchise. I cannot remember what it was called, but they like, remember some story about giant ants. Like I just remembered like you'd see them in like news agencies where they wouldn't sell Goosebumps, and if I didn't have a current Goosebumps book or whatever. So I remember reading like every single of the like normal Goosebumps books. I hated the Give Yourself Goosebumps ones, like the Choose Your Own Adventure ones.
Yeah.
I was like, this sucks. Like now you're giving me like 13 stories that are like all mid. I want the author to just fascistically to decide what the best pathway through this story is. I remember the first time I got a Give Yourself Goosebumps book, I read it within like 3 sort of changes. I like the character just died or something, and I was like, well, I guess I finished the book. And then someone's like, no, you go back and you choose the different options. And I was like, I don't like this. This sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I read all those, and then some other books and shit. You remember those like Scholastic magazines or whatever? Like you'd order books through school. I remember some things like that. I read a lot in primary school. Then in high school, pretty much read nothing except for Tony Hawk's autobiography like 3 times. And then in
And
late
then you
high
got
school,
into weed.
yeah, well, and then like late high school, some stoner friends were like into the Belgariad, the David Eddings books, which I know you've read as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, I remember getting really into those and then sort of reading Lord of the Rings and then being like, yeah, all right, I love fantasy, but then just like never found another fantasy series I really like got into. And then I sort of stopped reading, like late high school, you're just partying and whatever, skateboarding a lot. So I wasn't really reading anything, maybe a couple of things through my 20s. I think I read Dee Dee Ramone's autobiography, Peter Parrott biography, and Animal Farm, and started a bunch of books but never finished them. Started like an Evelyn War book at some point, and I was like, this sucks. And maybe it is good. I just at the time was like, I don't understand what's even happening in this book. And then basically read nothing through my 20s, and then about like the age 30, I think listening to a lot of podcasts, I felt like that kind of ambient pressure to be like literary and like read, and so I started reading like philosophy sort of stuff, and maybe I listened to like the audiobook of Crime and Punishment, and slowly just started getting in. Oh yeah, that was probably it, like Audible, like definitely like, but like a lot of those sort of trashy, like I think it was like would be like Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins books on like Audible, and then eventually like sort of getting more literary, and then at some point started reading like libertarian books, which are dreadfully boring. I didn't mind Hans Hermann Hoppe. His book Democracy, the God That Failed was pretty good, although it was probably boring in some ways too. Like it's 400 something pages, and it's kind of like you get the point pretty quickly. And then at some point I just realized like I'm just gonna start reading fiction, and then got a lot better from there. Once I started like just actually, because I had that thing like, I should be reading these like philosophy books to become intelligent and understand like the world. And then you have this delusion that like, if I read enough of it, I'll have all the problems of the world figured out. And then after a while you realize like, I just made it all way more complicated. Like now I realize like, shit, like there's no solving any of this shit. Like at least I'm not. So basically that. What about you? Have you just kind of always read since a kid?
Yeah, pretty much. And then obviously I did a literature degree. Well, I started doing an education degree because I was going to be a teacher. But then I got really annoyed with that because it was just so much bullshit, like educational theory. And I was like, I'm just going to do literature. And so I just sort of did that. And that was when doing a literature degree, you actually had to read a fuckload of books. Like you literally had to read like a Dickens book in a week sort of thing, like, so it usually wasn't the full 13 weeks of a book each week, but usually it was like at least 8 you would have to read over a semester, and big books too. Like you'd have to go from like Dickens to George Eliot, Middlemarch. You'd have to like really big kind of not modern books. Until we did the postmodern fiction kind of book. But even then they were modern books, but they're fucking huge. Like, like you said, Gravity's Rainbow, or I don't think we did Gravity's Rainbow actually, but that sort of thing. So I was always into reading when I was a kid, and a teenager. And at the same time that I was sort of reading all of these big 19th century books in, college, I was reading like all the fun stuff as well. And that actually was like you're saying, I was kind of doing what you advise in a weird way, because I would be like, I remember that back at uni when I first started university, that was when, I was a trailblazer, because that was when I was reading the Game of Thrones books long before the TV adaptation. And I got really into those because those first 3 books are like so good. They are just so gripping and you just want to keep going. Very, very compelling and kind of addictive reading. And weirdly that helped read the more kind of, because it is Martin's pretty easy to read. But it helps with the more difficult stuff, the old timey stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and obviously, but like I said at the top, like, you know, the advent of smartphones and things like that, it has taken a toll on my ability to read as well. So I have to, it's this weird thing where I didn't think about it before when I was a kid or like younger, but now I do have to be a little bit more like mindful when I'm sitting down to read, sort of thing. Like, then that means phone away, you know, just sort of, and it's not just the phone, it's like this you've got to kind of make yourself an island. You know, your bed is an island, and you're not going to go and do the dishes or do little chores unless you're like listening to a audio book or something like that.
Then you need to do chores. I can't just sit there and do nothing. Listen to
me too. And that is good. That's a good like productivity thing for me. Like, I will listen to a lot of audio books, mostly because of the podcast, because I have so many books to read, and then I go on other podcasts and stuff like that. And so I'll usually have one book that I'm like reading on my Kindle or a physical book, and then I'll be listening to a book as well for the show. But I don't know, if I didn't have a books podcast, I don't know whether I would even be on Audible, to be quite honest, because there's a slightly different vibe to audiobook versus reading it.
Some books work better as audiobooks. I find trashy like fantasy stuff is great for like fiction, and then sort of like zippy non-fiction stuff like autobiographies or like a fucking Ann Coulter book or something like works good as audiobook. But some things, like if you try to listen to, like I remember when I was getting really into like Julius Evola and I was like listening to his books on audiobook, they're not good on audiobook.
No.
I mean, like it's, you know, this shit's hard to read as it is, but yeah, I like, if I probably wouldn't have Audible if I didn't have a driving job, because like that is, I generally listen to audiobooks when I'm driving around and stuff like that at work. Like if I get sort of sick of podcasts sometimes, or if I have to read a book, like, you know, for the podcast or whatever, like, yeah, the Audible's great for that. But if I didn't have that job, I just probably would cancel my subscription. For sure.
That's what I got to get. I got to get a driving job. Like, that'd be so good. Just that you don't have to think too much as well. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And because I'm always like, I keep my Kindle in my pocket. Like the new Kindle is like smaller, so it's even lighter and fits in my pocket really good. Like, oh, you want to hear an example of what a fucking like lunatic I am sometimes? Like, when I was like, I'm gonna buy the new Kindle, and then I went to like JB Hi-Fi, and I was looking because it looks smaller, and I was like, wait, it's like smaller. Like it's like, it says it's a 6-inch screen, but. And I'm like using my thumb to like measure the diagonal. I'm like, that's not 6 inches. So this is like some bullshit. And I'm like, I don't want to get a smaller screen. Like that'll make even harder to, you know, you get a PDF and you try to read on it, you can't resize the font then. And I'm like talking to the guy, I'm like, is this actually 6 inches? He's like, says it's 6 inches. And I'm like, nah, that's not 6 inches. That's not 6 inches. And then like, then I was like standing there, like looking at it, and another guy comes up and I'm like, this isn't 6 inches. And Josie, my fiance, is just like so embarrassed for the way I'm being. And like, and then he's like, oh, I can go get the ruler and bring it out. And then he does. I'm like, yeah, do it. And then he actually brings the ruler out and he measures, he goes, yeah, it's 6 inches. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I stand corrected here. And then I go home and I get my old Kindle out and I measure it and I go, yeah, this is 6 inches too. I guess it's just the outer casing on the old one is bigger, so it looks smaller. And so I just go to a different JB Hi-Fi and buy it.
Because you couldn't turn up at the same one.
Yeah, no, I was like... And Josie's like, maybe I'm not sounding how much of a psychopath I was probably coming across, but Josie's just like, you are a fucking lunatic. Like,
yeah.
I forget where I was going with this story, exactly how I got onto this, but
having a driving job and having a Kindle in your
so I'll just keep the Kindle in my pocket, and like, because I'm always just have to wait for people that aren't ready, or like I've got to get in elevators or wait, you know, there's always construction going on in the city in Brisbane, so you just like, it's always tradies just clogging up the elevator for ages, so I'll just stand there and like, you know, just read a few pages here and there. And so if you got a job where you can do that, like I know some people like have jobs where they're constantly looking at a computer screen and they just say like they can't read too much because they just sort of, it reminds them of work and they need to like just watch TV to turn their brain off. But like,
yeah, well, in that example, I think that probably physical books are probably better than a Kindle then, so they don't have to like look at a screen, you know?
Yeah.
Because it is a different, you know, they can get that tactile like element of it if they want. Yeah, one of the things I love that you put in this essay, it's right at the top actually, when you're saying, and I say this to people all the time, that when people complain that they can't read, I'm like, you're scrolling on like social media, it's literally true that they've probably consumed about as many words as a book, like within the week, you know? And it's just like, well, yeah, why don't you take that? You know, clearly you can do it, you know, clearly by amount, you can read that amount of words. So like just transfer that to a book and something that's like, that has your interest, you know, because I don't think you can go cold turkey from like scrolling the internet. Some people can, but they're spurgs basically, scrolling the internet to like Dostoevsky or something like that. Like like you said, go to something that you're interested in and enthusiastic about. But yeah, that is so true that like people consume so many words on social media, whether it's Twitter, even Instagram, which is a visual platform. People are reading the captions and like all of that, this sort of stuff. It all adds up. It's not like you can't pass your eyes over words and like comprehend what they're saying. So just do that on a page, you know?
Yeah, or even just texting or group chats or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you like think like, oh, I'll just scroll up to find that message and you're like, that was ages ago.
Yeah.
It felt like just like only a couple of minutes. Like, so like they can read that much. It's just when it's broken down into these little bite-sized bits, like you only have to consume like a little bit at a time, you know, like, but sometimes you just got to trick your brain. That's why like the Kindle likes resizing the font to be bigger, so you don't feel like you're getting through quite as much. Like, and you'll get like, you want to just get that flow on. And yeah, like I always, sometimes, yeah, if you're looking at your phone, especially a lot, and then you're going to go to reading, you're going to be kind of in the phone zone in your brain a bit. You've got to kind of like do something to reset. You got to like let go of it. Like you just like, you know, you don't have to be I'm a terrible meditator, but like, just try to just like literally have like a half a second where your brain didn't even think a thought. Like if you can just do that, like you close your eyes and just like focus on your breathing and just sort of just clear it out for just like literally half a second. If you could do that, then it makes it easier to get into the story. And then, like I said in the article too, like, yeah, what you can do is then say you're reading whatever, like Jurassic Park, I think is the example I use in the article. Like, you know, just imagine like, all right, I'm on the like Jurassic Park island, like start visualizing the textures, like the jungle and dinosaurs.
Yeah,
and
before you even start reading.
Yeah, before you start reading. And then, because you know, when you start reading a book, just like you're like, even if you're like midway through it or whatever, you just pick up the page and you're staring at it and you're not like forming any visual images in your mind and you're like reading the same passage over and over again. So if you can like get that image already in your mind, and you know where you are, because as soon as you grasp onto like what's going on in the story and you like have a kind of sense of the narrative, like you immediately go, oh shit, and like you just start like flowing through it quicker. But it just always takes a bit, like if you to re-immerse yourself, like especially if you put the book down for a week or so and you haven't, you know, you've sort of like forgotten a bit what's going on. Like read the previous page like from your last session, like reread it just to get a book, because it'll be easier to reread once you've read it once, you know.
Or don't, like, because I find like if you come back to a book and just bore in, just go into it, and you'll pick up where you left off eventually. Like there's different ways of doing that, definitely. Like I really like that idea of like, I've never thought of that, but maybe I kind of automatically do that. I don't know, but like that is a really good tip, just to sort of, you know, visualize the world of the book, I guess, even if it's like a more contemporary book or whatever. Like if you're reading Sally Rooney, visualize yourself in like Dublin and, you know, it being wet and cold and
or just like go over the characters in your head quickly, you know, like just think like because you'll always have kind of a little mental image of what you think that character might look like or something. And you just sort of think about that, just something to just sort of stop thinking about like, I got to respond to that guy that fucking, call me whatever on Twitter. Like, don't get into Twitter arguments because you'll just be too obsessed with that. Like, and like, I have these problems. Like, I'm like the least online guy probably in the scene, just about. Like, I still have a Twitter and all that, but I like barely ever post, and I don't get caught up. And I'm always like 5 days behind on all the current things or whatever. So, and even I have that where I'll be reading and then I just like instinctually reach for my phone. Like, so keep it where it's you have to like get up and walk a step to get to your phone. You don't have to have it in like you can keep it on if you're waiting for a call or something like that. But like just try to keep it so like you can't just like absent-mindedly grab at it. And if you need to, just get it out of your system quickly. Like just quickly check your notifications or something, and then try not to get like it's dangerous because I do it. Like I'll go to check my bank balance, and then I'm like scrolling through Instagram, looking at skate videos and stuff. And I'm like, how the fuck did I end up here? Just because I saw the little badge icon had a 2 on it or something. Yeah.
Putting that, like Jack says, putting it in the other room is very necessary. The other thing with that is a really good tip for if you're finding it hard to get up in the morning as well. Like you set your alarm on your phone, but you put the phone in another room because it wakes you up, and then you can't just hit snooze because it's on your bedside table. You've got to get up and once you're up, you're up. So like very rarely will you like flop back into bed. Like, cause if it's like, oh, well, I'm up, I better have a shower and get ready sort of thing. So, that's a good tip for, not necessarily reading, but like getting your ass up in the morning. So.
Isn't there like an app where like the alarm will make you like solve a puzzle before it'll like turn off?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think it's like to hack, but I think your idea is simpler and it's whatever. Because you could get good at the puzzles to the point where you could just quickly solve it and then like just snooze.
Yeah.
So it sucks now because it's like still dark at like 5 and 6 in the morning. So like the alarm will go off and it's just like, I'm just gonna keep snoozing until like the sun actually. Because I'll keep my curtains open so that the sunlight will wake me up, but it's just getting
that's very soul bra coded of you.
Yeah. Yeah, our compatriot Soul Bra.
Yeah.
Again, I barely know who that is. I missed all the controversy with that guy. Just like all of a sudden, everyone's like talking about this guy they hate. Who's online.
I mean, he's really like about the sun, natural sun. He's one of those butthole sunners. Like he loves that shit. Or is it the butthole or sunning your balls? I can't remember which one it is. Probably both. But and I don't doubt that that's a good thing for you to do. But he's also a raw meat guy, which I'm less a fan of. I do want to get his gym shorts though because they look really good. So
are they like all natural fibers?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing that. Updating my wardrobe to like nothing polyester, like all like cotton and linen and wool if I can.
Yeah, it's good. Linen is so annoying to deal with though because it creases so easily, and if you're one of those fastidious people that needs like it all to be ironed, like it gets crinkled really fast.
I mainly go cotton to be honest, but like the cotton linen blend in like shorts or something like that can be nice. They breathe a bit better.
Yeah.
And I'll just like even hunt op shops and stuff. Like this jumper is like a rod and gun hoodie, all cotton. Like it's hard to find like, this is an off topic here, but it's hard to find like tracksuits and stuff that are 100% cotton. Like found like the AS store has good stuff and they always have sales. And then, you'll go to like Country Road and they'll have $120 pair of tracksuit pants, but they will be 100% cotton. But even like $100 pants, like will be just like 95% polyester kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
I found that, like you said, Rod and Gun's good for that. And so is Academy brand. If you've come across those, they have a lot of good natural blends. They have synthetics as well, but a lot of, anyway, another tip for the listeners.
That's for our op shop episode.
Yeah. Well, that can be a live one when next time you're in Melbourne, because there's so many great, thrift stores here. So,
well, I was thinking too, if when you're in Brisbane, we should go to that Mount Gravatt bookstore. Cause like, I always like have to just leave books. Like they had, I spent $100 there in the last week and I still like left like 12 Michael Moorcock books on the shelf kind of thing.
Amazing.
And then I like look at what I bought and I realized like I bought double ups. Like I bought like some book and it was already in like the collection of the like that steampunk one, and so I was like, fucking idiot, I bought the wrong ones.
Yeah.
But I got all the Gene Wolfe Book of the Long Sun now, a Book of the New Sun. I mean, so yeah. A couple of those. But anyway, back to our actual topic.
Yeah. So attention is a big thing, and you also talked about choice, which we've already kind of covered a little bit. But yeah, I like the idea of just choosing something that interests you if you want to get back into reading. Just something that's going to make you turn those pages, basically, is what you want to choose.
Do you have any like suggestions of books if you were to just give someone, like, you don't know anything about them, just here's like 5 books that would just be easy to read books to start with?
Books. Yeah, I'd probably say it depends on the genre you're into too. So, I would probably say for horror stuff, I would just say Stephen King. Stephen King's, you can't go wrong if you're into that sort of stuff. But for the fantasy genres, like the ones we've already mentioned, like the Belgaria, it's really easy to read.
Trouble with that is that then you're committing to like 5 books.
That's true.
That's the trouble. But once you get into it, like if you don't like the first book, just do not bother with the whole series.
Exactly. With science fiction, I would probably stick with the classics, because science fiction these days, like, is pretty. It's pretty crap. Like, it's really poorly written. I would go with the classics, the new wave, like people that we've covered on here before. Not necessarily. I wouldn't go straight into Philip K. Dick, because
it's a bit metaphysical.
It's a bit like I would do like someone like Heinlein or Harlan Ellison or someone like that. Or if you really want to get really spurgy, go with like Asimov or some people like that.
Some Philip K. Dicks, depending on the person, like I think they could do Ubik or the Three Stigmata. Definitely don't go Valis or The Man in the High Castle, just because I think that one sucks. But you know, depending on like what, if you're wanting to, because I think these people too, like, they're like, yeah, I could just read some trash, but I actually want to have read something that's considered like good, so it's a bit.
Yeah, but the thing is that, like, sometimes trash is good.
I think, the same.
Yeah, like,
I agree.
Well, actually, most times trash is good. Like, all of those people I've mentioned, like, Stephen King is kind of trash, but like, he's still like an amazing storyteller. And, and same with all those other people that I've mentioned. You'll find more like kind of phantasmagorical, interesting, complex shit in a genre stuff than you will in most modern literary stuff. And that's another thing that I wanted to talk about too, where you got the person who's like, oh, I feel like I need to be reading this for like, it's a weird prestige status thing. And I'm like, rid yourself of that as well. Like, just don't even think about that. Like, why? Like, no one cares what you're reading. Like, no. I mean, I do. Like, whenever I see someone reading a book, I'm always like rubbernecking to see what it is.
Same.
Like,
it's so hard. It's so hard to actually see what the cover is. They're always hiding it almost.
Yeah. So, but like, generally, like, no one's going to be like, say if you're reading Stephen King versus, I don't know, Thomas Pynchon. Like, I'm going to say like 60% of people probably don't know like what those names are, right? Maybe Stephen King more than Thomas Pynchon, but even Stephen King, like, they probably heard the name but don't know what that actually signifies, what kinds of stories that signifies. And so then it's just like, so they're not going to judge you based on what you're reading. So you just need to read what you like, and that's that. Where, like, I'm not going full like poptimism here, but like, I'm just saying that like there is value in reading itself, and you don't need to be like, oh, I've read this, I've read that. That is like shit that annoys me so much on social media, where people are like, oh, I've read the latest. It was like that fucking that Brodinism piece, like whatever that Russian guy's name was that he was talking about. I'm like, and this is like a really niche, kind of surreal book in Polish translation or whatever it is. And I'm like, who
Imagine
gives a
hearing
fuck?
yourself say that. If
Yeah,
someone's like,
and
"Oh,
like,
what are you reading?" Oh, well, actually, it's this Polish thing. It's one.
but like, fine if that's what you like, but also who cares? Like, no one cares in terms of prestige. Like, whether you're
No.
reading that or Clive Barker, like to everyone else, it's not a status signal. So it's like you're just reading, which reading in itself might be a status signal. Like people might be like, oh, this person has enough of an attention span to read, so they are like, but I don't think it's a status thing. It's probably just like, oh, they're a bit weird because they can read. I don't know. Like,
And it's just like, if you read enough, you'll get to the point where, like, you've read so much trash that you kind of actually want to read Dostoevsky or like the Polish Brodenism thing, like, and you actually will enjoy it. But if you just jump straight into it, you're going to find it a lot of work.
yeah.
So just, yeah, rid yourself of this notion that you have to be like, accept it's work. It is, reading is work. It's boring a lot of the time, but it's rewarding. And if you figure it out, you're just going to have to spend a bit of time, like, wading through the muck, but hopefully our tips can help you like get there a bit quicker. Just, yeah, everyone makes the mistake of just going straight to reading the like 1,200 page like Dostoevsky book or something, and then they do the thing where they read 2 chapters and they put it down, and then they don't allow themselves to read anything else because they haven't finished that book. So just, yeah, I would say, like, if you want to be all timeliney about it and stuff, like, read Platform by Welbeck. It's fun, it's easy to read, and you'll get to like post it on Instagram and be like, look at me, I'm reading a cool book. Like, but yeah, read Conan the Barbarian. They're fucking fun stories. And like, again, it depends if you want to actually say I finished a whole book. Like Conan's like all broken down into like 20-page stories, and like that can get a bit boring reading them. I read one once in a while, but I don't really ever read 2 in a row kind of thing. You read like the Elric books by Michael Moorcock. They're pretty zippy and easy to punch through. Like they're only like 190 pages or something. Like, what else do I have written down here? Oh, the Island of Dr. Moreau. That's a banger. It's not that long. Good. Yeah, it's so good. You'll think you know the story because there's movies and Simpsons episodes based on it. You don't probably even know the real story and how good it is. Fight Club. That's easy to read. Like you've probably seen the movie, so you can like also just read it easier because you sort of know what's going on. Yeah, any Michael Crichton book is probably going to be a good choice.
And you notice, sorry, keep going.
Oh, no, I'm done. Yeah, you go.
You notice that all these recommendations are books that would never be assigned in school. And so this is the other thing that you have to do, like I was saying before, is that you have to reorient your relationship to reading away from school. Because usually for most people, that's when they start reading books, right? And they're assigned these books. Like there's a few bangers that you get in school. Like, well, I did anyway. Like
The Outsiders.
The Outsiders. I got Brave New World in my later years, which was like really mind blowing at the time.
I got 1984 in high school, and I thought it was the boringest thing in the whole world.
Yeah, 1984.
And then I read it again in my like 30 when I was 30, and I was like, this book rules. Like,
yeah, but Brave New World I think is better because I think it's like that's the actual dystopia that we live in. But it's closer to that anyway. But but other than that, you do get assigned things that are not assigned because they're pleasurable to read. They're assigned because they're quote unquote important. There are things that you can kind of draw out of them for criteria in school. Like, 1984 is a good example. Like, write an essay on authoritarianism, like, or whatever, or free speech, or, whereas, those books, are readily, applicable to learning. Whereas these other books are more applicable to you having a good time. And that's the reorientation that I kind of want people to understand, that like, it's not about, just stop thinking it's about learning and that you're doing something to kind of, educate yourself, and I think that's something that a lot of people who read like lean into as well. Like if you're a kind of, they'd be like, I'm very sophisticated because I've read all these books. It's like, no, I want people to understand that for the most part, reading books is fun and like it's a good time. Like it's not about like you signaling that you're this, intellectual or whatever. I really hate that attitude.
And if reading books made you smart, like, then all those fucking like libtard journalists, people who read like 100 books against Trump every year would be geniuses.
Yeah.
Clearly, like, they could just keep reading books over and over again, and it doesn't move the needle.
To be fair, I don't think they actually read that many books, but
yeah, maybe not. Well, they post I remember there was a bit like after Trump was like lost the second election or whatever, and they're like, all right, I'm getting rid of all the books I read over the last, and then someone just had a pile of just like all of those like, why Trump's fascist and Mary Trump's book and I remember seeing them all in thrift shops. Like, I was nearly tempted to start buying them up, but I was like, what am I going to do with these? I'm not fucking reading them. Like, like my missus will get mad that I'm already like wasting enough space in the house with books I'm not reading.
Yeah, I can see some.
Yeah. Oh no, those are DVDs.
Oh, they're DVDs. DVDs, you're turning into a hoarder. Yeah, the other one that I liked that you talked about was being comfortable when you're in your little reading nook. That's always important, I think.
Yeah, these are the devices.
He's wearing these glasses that what do? They allow you to like lean back and read it.
So I can see you now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're like got little mirrors in them. They're called lazy readers. You can get them on like eBay or Amazon or some shit. And so, because I was finding just getting like a crooked neck, like sitting in bed.
You do look insane when you wear that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course, yeah.
You look like a cyberpunk character.
Yeah, you look like you're in the like, fucking, what's the Schwarzenegger movie based on the Philip K. Dick? I can't believe Total Recall. You look like you're in like the Total Recall pod or whatever, or the Minority Report pod. Where, like,
get your ass to Mars. Yeah. Get your ass to Mars. Yeah.
Like the Lawnmower Man or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're just like, you can because you get a sore neck reading, and the more your like neck or back is hurting, the more you're just going to think about that. And the more laborious reading becomes. So like, yeah, I don't always use these, but like if I'll just lay flat on my bed, I'll put the lazy readers on, and then I got this pillow pad here, which they might have different names, but you can get them in like post offices and online, Kmart. Like they're just like a triangular prism foam thing, and they got like a little ledge. Like
that one's kind of shaped like the neo-Nazi sign, but
a little bit. But not exactly. You could probably get a swastika shaped one if you really want to be esoteric about it. But yeah, you're just reading Mein Kampf. Like, don't read that book as your first book to start with. I've never read it, but it looks boring. But yeah, so it's just like a little thing that you can like put the book on, like a little ledge, and especially if you've got a Kindle, because then you can go let go of it. If you've got a book that you got to hold open, whatever, it still makes it easier because it takes the weight off your shoulders and that. But yeah, so I'll just lay on my back, I'll put the Kindle like on that little pillow pad, and I'll just like sit back so I can keep my neck straight, and then I'll read 7 pages and fall asleep.
With the glasses on.
No. So I don't always do it because like when I'm just too relaxed, especially if it's like later at night, I'll fall asleep. But if it's in the middle of the day or something, but whatever, this might not work for you. Don't be like, all right, I can't start the book until I've got the pillow pad and the lazy readers. Like you just gotta like, it might be better just to sit at a table and like sit in a chair, and then you put the book on the table, or prop it up on some cushions. Just get yourself comfortable in some way. Get on a beanbag. Like figure out what's gonna cause you the least like discomfort. And yeah, like I say, do some stretches. Do like just YouTube like basic 10-minute yoga or something, just to like sort of get rid of any like niggles in your muscles or whatever. And then
get rid of
any. That was hard L, not hard R. Yeah. So just find some way that you're going to be like not too discomfortable, and every so often maybe just get up, walk around, sort of stretch your neck out a bit, do it, whatever. Because I feel like no one ever talks about this, but reading can become physically painful.
Mm.
Like where I don't know, do you get that much, like the old man back and stuff?
Not really. I'm pretty spry for my age, actually. But
Okay.
like, I don't know why. Maybe it's just good genetics or something. But usually I'm in bed and I'm like propped up on a pillow when I read. So, or I'm on the couch or something like that. And usually I'll move around, but, if I need to change positions, but I'm sure it'll become a thing as I get older. But yeah, so it is important to be comfortable. I do like the idea of, how people sometimes who work at an office have like the standing desk, the adjustable kind of thing. I do like the idea of being someone, well, I would love to have a room that is my library, and I'd love to have a lectern like that you could just read it on. So you could stand up and read. That'd be fun.
Yeah. No, like, because that's the thing too, like, is I'm driving all day, so I'm sitting and I've got so that's kind of why, like, I got to stretch so much. Depends on what your job is. If you're stretching your muscles out working or something, and then like to sit down is kind of like relaxing. So yeah, like, when I'm at work, I'll be in the van, I'll take my lunch break, and the Kindle's great because I can just sit it on the steering wheel, and then I can just eat my sandwich or whatever and just sit there, and just, read and stuff. But just sitting for long periods of time or whatever, it's bad for your muscles. So you just got to get up and sort of. But again, the point is, like, don't have to do what I'm doing exactly or whatever. Just figure out what works. And I guess that's the point I wanted to elaborate on my article, is like, I was trying to like demonstrate without saying it explicitly, like, just play around until you find your own system. Just don't get too fixated on the systematic thing of it. Like, yeah, it's going to sometimes kind of hurt your neck a little bit. Don't sit there and just like, I still do this. Like, my neck will be hurting and I'll go to the end of the chapter before I get up. And then the chapter happens to be 65 pages long or something. And then I'm like fully like kinked in my neck. And then by the end of it, I'm not absorbing the story. So you just got to like, pay attention to your body and listen to the signals it's telling you, and, change things around, move to the couch, move to the bedroom, stand up, get the lazy readers if you think that'll help you out. Just something,
That's something that, make sure that you're comfortable, because it is it's a fun thing. And that point that you raise about, like, don't try to have everything aligned. I have to do this or that. Like, do what works for you. Like, I feel like a lot of this stuff where people are like, I need to do this, I need to do that before I can even start reading. It's just like, you're just looking for excuses not to read.
Exactly.
Like, do you want to do it or you're not? Or do you not want to do it? If you want to do it, do it. It's that sort of thing. It's the same with the Jack's thing about the translumph.
Yeah.
Wasn't that your coinage, actually?
I believe I coined it, but like, I was like derivative coinage from his already, the lumphies and all that.
The translumphy, the person who like must have the correct translation of the translated book before they can even like, even begin. It's just like, no, just get the book and read it.
Yeah.
The other point that you made, which I think was the last one, was the point about time. And like, I really think you could have been meaner in this section because like, people are so stupid about this, where they're like, I don't have any time to read. And it's like, bullshit. You just wasted
your timeline.
Yeah. You just wasted, 100 tweets per day. I'm like, oh, I have no time to read, like, you've been on social media for most of the day, including your work day, but you don't have time to read. That is a crock of shit.
It's like when someone's like, like, they're like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. They're like, oh, I've just been so busy. It's always bullshit. It's just like, I didn't want to hang out with you.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't make the time to hang out with you. Definitely.
Yeah. And if like Kelby and David can like have children, have a podcast, write books, play video games,
and have full-time jobs,
shoot guns, whatever else is they do, and still probably read more books than I do. Like, anyone can make time, it's just nonsense. It's just you've got to like carve out that space. You're not going to be like able to like craft these banger tweets and punch them out all the time. Like you just at some point you just have to make the decision, like, what do I want to do more? Do I want to read, or do I want to try to become like a notorious Twitter account?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and speaking of Twitter as well, I remember there was a guy a few months back, I think it might have been last year actually, who was like saying, it was relating it to like college and stuff that, you know, it used to be that we would expect students to be able to read 100 pages a day, and that was just normal, right? But now it's like like expecting to read 100 pages a semester is like too much, you know? And all of these people were like criticizing this guy who, like, I forget his name, but he's a pretty, like, he works in a university. He's pretty, you know, he's pretty kind of like, as you would expect, professorial or whatever. So he wasn't necessarily doing a right-wing kind of engagement farm thing. He was just stating a fact. And he was saying that, but then he was getting quote tweeted by all these people saying it was ableists.
Yeah.
And it's the people saying like, oh, you know, I work, most students have to work full time or like part time actually, because they're students. And they've got other commitments and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, come on, as if those people with their other commitments aren't constantly online, scrolling TikTok, looking at Twitter or Instagram or whatever the hell they're doing. It's just such bullshit. And then I got, yeah, in response, I think I quote tweeted that as well. And in response to that, I think friend of the pod, Patrick, who's a listener, reached out to me and said he was like, he works 50 hours a week. He has toddlers and he definitely reads over 100 pages a day. So like, if people like that can do it, like you can do it too with your, you know, single life, doom scrolling all day sort of thing. Like you can definitely find the time.
And it is ableist to a degree, but I'm like, to that, I just say like, well, are you fucking retarded? Like, unless you are, like, then so what? Just do it. Yeah. Like you have the ability. Like, to do anything, there's going to be an argument that it's ableist because some people aren't able to do it. It's like, okay, we'll excuse those guys, you know, from the like expectation to read, you know, like not even 100 pages a day, like 10 pages a day or something. Like they can be excused, but if you're not, like, then what's your excuse?
Yes, Fresta, but like their excuse now is that everyone has ADHD and therefore they are disabled. So that's why that's probably what they're getting at.
When I was in school, the teachers tried to pressure my parents to put me onto like ADHD medicine. I fought through that shit. Like I have trouble with the like attention thing and trying to read. And I talk to people all the time who just like use that as an excuse and they're just like, yeah, but I have ADHD. It's like just one guy at work always uses the term neurodivergent and stuff like that. But then they're on social media, like absorbing all the bullshit. Like it's like I always be blunt with them. Like you're just throwing an excuse in the way. Like I'm just like, I have those issues where I have trouble with attention span and stuff like that. I just fought through it and eventually get to the other side. Stop putting the excuse in the way.
Yeah.
And ADD is not real. So also there's that. Yeah.
Yeah, co-sign that.
Yeah.
Not real. It's literally just phones. Like ADHD is literally just phones. Stop saying you've got ADHD. Stop fucking shopping around for a diagnosis so you can say that you're disabled.
They pay a lot of money for those diagnoses too.
And get on the NDIS in fucking Australia, which is like such a fraud where people like take money from the government and like pay people to take them out somewhere because they have ADHD and like quote unquote social anxiety or whatever. You don't have these things. You have phone. That's what you have. That is your affliction. What we've been saying, if you want to get into reading and you're quote unquote ADHD, you need to deal with the phone and you need to do the things that we're talking about in this episode. You have phone, not ADHD.
Totally. Yeah. People at my work where they're like take it seriously. They'll be like 50 years old and they're like, you know, I always had trouble with this. And then I got diagnosed with ADHD and like now, like, you know, like I take the speed tablets and I'm just like, bro, you just like taking speed. Like stop acting like you're like this.
And it does make you more efficient for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like it's really good. I remember when I was in the US because, you know, they just hand Adderall out like candy over there. Like, it's really amazing, actually. You know how hard it is to get, like, it's not hard, but it is, you know.
You got to pay a lot here. You just got to pay $1,000 to doctors, and a friend of Josie's like got paid to get a diagnosis. She got diagnosed as like dyslexic at like 30 something. And I was like, so what is it going to even do to, she's like,
yeah, clearly you've survived. Clearly
Yeah.
you've survived for this long. Like, why did you need? And yeah, when you've got like people in their 40s and 50s saying, "Oh, I'm ADHD," it's just like, no, those people are the most addled by their phones. Like, have you ever seen like, and people older too? Like my parents who are boomers, they're always on their phones or on the internet or whatever, getting addled by social media, and like but they don't have. At least they don't claim to have ADHD. You know, most boomers don't, I don't think. But
no, remember when phones were kind of new, and they were always like, you're out to dinner somewhere and you look at your phone, like, get off your phone. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that waitress has tattoos. That sucks. And then you're like, oh, come on. And now I'm like, no, you're right. Waitress has tattoos. That sucks. And get off your phone. Stop fucking showing me how your Apple Watch works. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, my dad will just be like mid-sentence, just like, oh, the fucking thing. And like getting like mad about it. They're like, there's so much more into the technology. Like, but they still will like, oh, you're young. You know how to use this. How do I set this up? And I'm like, no, you use it more than I do. You should know by now. Like,
you made your bed, lie in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of insights here for people who want to read, including people who think they have ADHD, but they don't.
No.
Did you have anything more to add to this that you didn't get into the original article?
Let me have a look at the notes I made. Yeah, I think we covered it all pretty much. There's always more and more little kind of tips, but yeah, I think the main points are like, yeah, your phone is going to be a hindrance. Pick something that's going to be easy to read, and you will have a good time. You know, get comfortable. Get a Kindle. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I agree, and also just don't view it like. You know, you don't go into movies or you don't go into like, go to watch a football game or something like that with the idea that you're going to learn something, right? You go in, you're going to have a good time. You're going to be excited. You're going to be enthralled. You're going to be compelled. Like, so it's like the same way you view those things, view reading, because I think you've been trained to view reading as this like scholastic thing that you have to do in school. So we have to like break that idea of reading too. Yeah, just have fun because it is fun.
Yeah, it is fun. It's boring sometimes, but like push through that. Like movies are boring sometimes, especially nowadays. They all seem to be really fucking boring. So yeah, just accept you're going to have some boredom, but just keep going and you'll have a lot of fun. And yeah, if you make the right pick with a book, it will flow easily. And yeah,
definitely
stop making excuses.
Stop it. Yeah. All right. I'll share this in the show notes, your article. So hopefully you get a few more readers there. If you want to find out more. And yeah, we'll be back again soon. I'm not quite sure what the next episode will be, but yeah, thanks for joining us today. I'll see you later.
Bye.